This is Davin's introduction. Davin is a life and disability insurance specialist. He has proven to bring the highest value to his clients by combining time-tested philosophy with cutting-edge strategy. With a decade of service under his belt, Davin is proud to have built a successful financial practice with one of his biggest role models, his oldest brother. Together they connect with and service a wide spectrum of clientele, helping them take progressive steps towards financial improvement. Without further ado, Davin Sessa.
Hey, Davin.
So thank you very much for allowing me to share today. I'm going to tell you a little bit about me. I'll tell you a little bit about me today, and ultimately the reason I joined this group, which is I think the reason everyone has joined this group, is to just build mutually beneficial relationships. So a little about me. I grew up locally. Actually went to school with Renee's daughter. In my opinion, I don't think there's a lot for the youth to do around here. So my parents enrolled me into a bunch of sports. Early on, I ended up gravitating towards soccer and martial arts, both of which I'm still very active and passionate about today. And I believe that my participation in those activities, as well as my faith, has helped shape who I am and will continue to help where I'm going. Professionally, I entered the financial industry and the insurance industry when I was only 24 years old. It was very difficult for me. The industry has an extremely high turnover rate, regardless of age. But I'm proud to say that almost 10 years later, I'm still standing, so I feel like I'm doing something right. I operate my practice right alongside my oldest brother. We're very well spaced apart. There's about 18 years between us.
Wow.
We got one brother in between. He happens to be a teacher out in Harlem. Yes, we all have the same parents. As you can imagine, forming business with family could be a little stressful at times, but overall I gotta say I consider myself very fortunate to have partnered with my brother, because by the time I came on the scene, he already had a lot of years of success under his belt. So partnering with him allowed me to be privy to some really high level and significant conversations that I just wouldn't have been exposed to otherwise. I've seen the evidence, I've taken note of the decisions that people make in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and the habits that they form, and seeing how that translates into their 50s, 60s, and up. Finance is a really big world. So if we break it up into just two areas, and we say on one side there's protection areas, on the other side there's growth areas. Protection would be things like auto insurance, home insurance, life insurance, disability insurance, well, a lot of your insurance plans. Growth would be more market-based activities, so investments such as mutual funds, stocks, maybe even retirement accounts, since there's investments there. Where do you think most people within their own financial lives tend to focus first? Who says the protection? A couple half hands. Who says the growth? A lot more hands. And I would say I agree, right? So there's a bit of a mixture, but most people tend to focus on the growth sector first. Why? Because, well, I want to make as much money as fast as I can without doing a lot of work. So we kind of focus there. Or typically, if you start working for somebody, it's a pretty common practice that if you sit down with an HR person, they'll say, how much do you want to put towards your retirement plan? And you say, well, what does everyone else do? 3%? Sweet, I'll take 3%. I'll put that towards my 401k. Then for the next couple of years, or maybe a couple decades, you just kind of hope that that works out. Right? You hope the account keeps going up. And what we say a lot of times is, we hope it works out too, but hope doesn't mean you have a plan. And so in our practice, we have a philosophy where we say protection should come first, right? Because you build certainty into your plans. We all have a lot of different backgrounds here. I think we could all agree that in life in general, there are challenges that come along the way. Yeah? We don't always know the particulars, but we know challenges will come. And the plans that you have in place will determine the size of the obstacles you face. I coined that. Does everyone know the name Robert Kiyosaki? He wrote, right, the Rich Dad Poor Dad series. So he states that the number one rule to becoming financially successful is to buy assets. And so we play a game with our clients, which I'm going to ask us to play. I call it the asset game. So I'm going to ask a question. You guys shout out whatever answer you want. I want you to think in dollars, but I'm not going to ask you to answer in dollars. In terms of assets that you own, and again, all from different backgrounds, what do you think your most valuable asset is? Life? Home, house,
Large cap stock.
husband.
Cryptocurrency.
Yeah, crypto. All right, new stuff. All right, so a couple good answers there. I'm gonna pick one to make an example. So I heard a couple people say home, and that should be good for you. Right. So if we have a house, and the value of the house, look around here, $300,000.
A little higher.
I was saying, well, I'm going to stick with you. We got an excellent deal on it because we worked with Zing. Okay. In 10 years, how much is that house going to be worth?
$450.
$450. You want to go higher?
It's okay.
It's okay. 450. 500.
Yeah, maybe
500. Do I have 6? Let's just say it's 5. Okay. Pretty significant asset. If something unforeseen happens, such as a fire, a flood, whatever, right? Damage happens. What do we hope that we have in place? Insurance. We want to protect it. And of course, we're going to talk to the one and only Miss Julia to make sure we're properly protected. Right? I've heard people say, my car is my biggest asset, right? And I say, well, how much is that going to be worth in the future? And it always goes down, right? But in the same token, do we normally get insurance on our car? Of course, right? Because if something happens, whether it's a lawsuit or we get damaged, we don't want to come out of pocket to replace that vehicle, right? For what it's worth. So there's one asset that I think most people really overlook, and that is something that I would say is your most valuable asset.
I knew that, by the way. I was just having fun with you.
So it's your ability to earn an income is your greatest asset. Okay? So let's just say, we'll do some math here too. Let's say if someone makes $100,000, how much is going to come through their hands over the next 10 years?
$1 million.
$1 million bucks. I am not a math genius, but I am pretty certain that $1 million bucks is more valuable than even my home, even if it was a higher home. And so if we take steps to try to put plans in place to protect the values of our home, the values of our, perhaps, I'm surprised no one said business actually, but the values of our business, someone did, a little quiet. The values of our car. We're doing that to protect values. But our most valuable asset oftentimes gets overlooked. Right? And so wouldn't it make sense to protect the value of our most important asset, our most valuable asset? Absolutely. We do that in a couple different formats. So sometimes you can do a phenomenal job saving, and maybe that's how you can protect your income. But a lot of times, a very effective way or efficient way is looking at a disability insurance policy. Right? Now, some people who work for others may have some coverage through work, and that's fine. But even so, and hopefully you never have to use it. But if you have income at whatever it is, in this case I wrote 100. If you have some coverage through work, maybe it's somewhere around 50 or 60%, but just for easy math, if that went down, if all of a sudden income went from 100 to 50, you think life would be a little challenging, right? I don't think that money is everything, but it's very important into how you end up living, right? We all have a certain lifestyle we enjoy, we want to keep it that way. And so if someone gets sick or injured, it doesn't mean that they're crippled in a wheelchair, they just can't do the duties of their own job. Then a lot of times an effective way to make sure you secure your income is having some amount of disability insurance in place. Worst case scenario is when someone passes away. When somebody passes away, also if we're looking at the economics, their income tends to pass away at the exact same time. And unfortunately, now that income, it wasn't just for a certain time period where they were sick for a couple months or a couple years, but now their income disappeared for eternity. And particularly for people with a family who's banking on living a certain lifestyle, they bank on, well, this is the income I have each year. What happens if that disappears kind of forever? And so we look at life insurance in that case, because normally that's the most efficient way to secure lifestyle going forward. If you know people who should be talking about these areas, then I would love to be a resource for them. If you want someone to look at the stuff that you have in place, the plans you have in place, just as a second opinion or review, I'd be happy to do that as well. But I know that these two areas are critical to anyone's financial success, and anyone who has made it to a level of success, I believe will attest to that. Thank you.